About 15 kilometers west of Datong, Shanxi, there's a low hill known as Wuzhou Mountain. This modest hill might have stayed anonymous in maps and history books. Yet, on its southern slope, an extraordinary masterpiece of art history emerged. One of China's largest ancient grotto complexes, the Yungang Grottoes. The work on the Yungang Grottoes kicked off around 460 AD to 465 and lasted over 70 years. It was a turbulent time in Chinese history, with the Xianbei-led Northern Wei dynasty ruling the north. During this period of the Northern Wei's political reforms and unification wars, ethnic integration was taking place amid destruction and reconstruction. Han culture merged with those of the Xianbei, Xiongnu, and other minorities, alongside influences from distant lands, like India, Persia, and Rome. Buddhism had already found its way into China by this time. Buddha's profound smile reflected not only the era's cultural confluence, but also the profound change as the ambitious Xianbei nomads strove to blend with Central Plains culture and create new governance systems. The craftsman's tools captured the fervent and tumultuous spirit of the era. Within the grottos of Wuzhou Mountain, this condensed an enormous historical and aesthetic energy, sparking a brilliant artistic explosion that left Yungang's name eternally etched in art history. The Northern Wei dynasty in the construction of the Yungang Grottoes were initiated by the Xianbei Talba tribe. Both the tribe and its vibrant, diverse empire have long vanished into history. The origins of this tribe have remained a mystery. People have always wondered what kind of land could have nurtured such a legendary tribe. A historical record offers a vital clue to this puzzle. As per the Book of Wei, in the 4th year of Northern Wei's Taiping Zhenjuan era, a small state named Wuluoho came to pay tribute. They reported finding a stone chamber where the ancestors of the Northern Wei once lived, located in the Great Xianbei Mountain, northwest of their territory. In response, Emperor Talba Tao dispatched officials to offer sacrifices, and had an inscription carved on the chamber's wall before returning. Historians speculate that the Great Xianbei Mountain refers to today's Greater Xing'an Range, though the exact location of the stone chamber remains unknown. About 10 kilometers north of Aliher Township, Oregon Autonomous Banner, the landscape features towering peaks and dense forests. Nestled in the cliffs is a natural cave, standing 20 meters tall and covering 2,000 square meters. Local legend holds that a sage named Gaxian once resided here, naming the site Gaxian Cave. On July 30, 1980, archaeologist Mi Wenping made a surprising discovery. Within this secluded cavern, stone inscription over 1,500 years old weathered by centuries of exposure. The inscription was barely legible. Upon discovery, through painstaking efforts and the use of rubbings, archaeologists finally restored the text. The rediscovered inscription thrilled contemporary scholars, as it provided the missing evidence behind a 1,500-year-old mystery, confirming the archaeological origins of the Xianbei Talba tribe. The stone inscription found in Gaxian Cave has 201 characters and closely matches historical records of the inscription, commissioned by Northern Wei Emperor Talba Tao. This discovery confirms the site as the birthplace of the Xianbei Talba tribe, who maintained a primitive lifestyle there until the Eastern Han period. From here, the tribe embarked on a journey, eventually reaching the Central Plains and ushering in a new era. Historical records indicate that the tribe left their ancestral home in Greater Xing'an Range in the 1st century AD, during the early Eastern Han period, and migrated south. How, then, did they encounter Buddhism? And what led to the creation of the Yungang Grottoes? Of all the sculptures at the Yungang Grottoes, one stands out as the most renowned. This statue of Shakyamuni is featured in most promotional materials for the site. Standing 13.5 meters tall, it is the central icon of Cave 20 at the Yungang Grottoes. The Buddha sits in the lotus position, and his hand gesture, the Dhyana Mudra, signifies meditation. In Buddhism, the Buddha is said to have 32 major and 80 minor marks, signifying an ideal physique, such as a top knot, a tuft of white hair between the brows that emits light, earlobes reaching the shoulders, and hands extending past the knees. The expression radiates compassion and wisdom. The statue in Cave 20 is considered a perfect representation of these traits.
The carving here demonstrates extraordinary artistic skill. Although not the largest, it is certainly the most iconic, and excels in both form and expression.
As the most iconic statue of the grottos, the central icon of Cave 20 represents more than just exquisite craftsmanship. Many scholars believe it is among the earliest statues carved. The Yungang Grottoes were commissioned by Emperor Wencheng of the Northern Wei. Scholars suggest these early colossal statues symbolize the emperors of Northern Wei's founding lineage, with the Cave 20 icon possibly representing the dynasty's first emperor, Talba Gui. In the 1st century AD, the Xianbei Talba tribe left the dense forests of the Greater Xing'an Range and moved to the Mongolian steppe, where they engaged in prolonged warfare with the Xiongnu and other tribes. By the Wei and Jin periods, the sounds of battle horns echoed across northern China. In 386 AD, 16-year-old Talba Gui founded a state called Wei in what is now Ho-Hot, Inner Mongolia, later referred to as Northern Wei. A decade later, Talba Gui led the Northern Wei cavalry from the steppes to capture Zhongshan, the capital of later Yan, now Dingzhou in Hebei. He then pushed further south. Hengshan Mountain, one of China's 5 sacred mountains, stretches over 150 kilometers across Shanxi and Hebei provinces. Its tough terrain forms a natural barrier that once obstructed the southward advance of the Xianbei people. Here stands the famous Hanging Temple, perched cleverly and precariously on the southern cliffs of Wuzhou Mountain. Spanning over 30 meters long, and standing 50 meters above the ground, the temple's suspended construction is said to be closer to the divine. But there's another story. Looking westward from the Hanging Temple, you can see numerous square holes in the cliff, classic remnants of ancient plank roads. In the winter of 398 AD, an army of 100,000 broke the valley's tranquility. Led by Talba Gui, they carved a path through Wuzhou Mountain along a plank road, breaking through the southern barrier. This road followed the Jinglong Gorge water system, which flows right beneath the temple. The site of the Hanging Temple was originally a military post set up by Talba Gui. Over 1,600 years ago, Talba Gui led the nomadic Xianbei Talba tribe through this route to Pingcheng, present-day Datong. Excavations from the Northern Wei period in Datong have unearthed numerous ceramic figurines, shedding light on Northern Wei lifestyle, with agriculture being a prominent theme. In 398 AD, Talba Gui issued a decree, transforming the nomadic Xianbei into farmers akin to the Han people to engage in agriculture. He introduced a land distribution system based on household size, allocating oxen and fields to the Xianbei for farming and taxation. That same year, Talba Gui declared himself emperor and established Pingcheng, now Datong, as the capital. This horse-riding, tent-dwelling nomadic tribe suddenly had to learn to farm and build vast cities, like those of the Central Plains dynasties. Within a brief moment in history, the Xianbei transitioned from a nomadic band to a settled agricultural civilization. In the heart of Datong stands the magnificent Huayan Temple, often shrouded in incense smoke. Most of Datong's oldest temples still standing are from the Liao and Jin dynasties. However, Datong's prosperity began with its establishment as the capital of Northern Wei. The city served as the imperial capital for 97 years, witnessing vast construction and remarkable glory. In April 2003, a joint archaeological team from the Shanxi Culture Relics Bureau discovered a significant Northern Wei building site at Pingcheng.
The spot we're at now is the Pingcheng Northern Wei Site number 1. It spans 44.4 meters east to west and 31.5 meters north to south. The foundation is made of rammed earth, and at its southern edge, there are 2 steps, spaced just over 14 meters apart.
Although urban development has since covered the archaeological site and halted further excavations, this discovery brought to light the grand scale of the historical capital, recorded in texts. According to historical records, Pingcheng had a population of 1 million, with avenues crisscrossing the city. The palace, inner, and outer cities were neatly planned. It was the most magnificent and bustling metropolis of its time in the vast northern landscape.
Pingcheng was the first capital in China, built according to Han cultural traditions, featuring a grid design of streets. Without Pingcheng's layout and planning, there would be No Chang'an of the Tang dynasty.
Talba Gui not only built the capital based on Han culture, but also adopted various Han institutions, including titles, government structures, schools, and rituals. Despite rivaling the Eastern Jin, Han regime in the south, the Xianbei emperor solemnly honored Confucius annually. Daoism, with its focus on yin-yang, mysticism and pursuit of immortality, was also embraced. In short, Central Plains culture thrived among the Xianbei people. As Confucianism and Daoism flourished, Buddhism, a new religion from the West, also began to spread. Buddhism played a crucial role in the creation of the Yungang Grottoes. Beneath the Yungang Mountains lies the Chilachuan grassland, where the sky arches over the wide plains. Winds bend the grass, revealing cattle and sheep. Many don't know. This famous UFU poem was translated from the Xianbei language into Chinese, originally a Xianbei folk song. In the late Eastern Han period, while the Xianbei still herded beneath Chilachuan on the Mongolian plateau, a significant cultural event occurred. Buddhism traveled along the Silk Road from India, Pakistan, and Central Asia, reaching the Central Plains via Xinjiang and Gansu. It was then that China's earliest Buddhist temple, White Horse Temple, was established. The late Eastern Han and the following Wei and Jin periods were turbulent times in Chinese history, with frequent wars and strife. In the suffering of reality, people became inclined to embrace Buddhism, which placed hope in the afterlife, offering solace by promising an otherworldly paradise.
Buddhism teaches salvation in the next life. No matter how painful this life may be, one can ascend to heaven, reaching the blissful Pure Land. This belief eased some spiritual pain, even if it was somewhat illusory.
Originally, the Xianbei practiced shamanism, believing in animism where animals, plants, and even inanimate objects and natural phenomena could be revered. After a series of wars and unification of the north, resulting in a standoff against the Eastern Jin regime in the south, Buddhism found a strong following among the Xianbei. However, for Buddhism to spread further, the monastic community had to devise new strategies. Around 397 AD, a monk named Fagua arrived in Pingcheng. Historical records state that Fagua preached the scriptures and was known for his moral integrity. At that time, Northern Wei's founding emperor, Talba Gui, had just developed an interest in Buddhism and wanted Fagua to expound the teachings. Upon meeting Talba Gui, Fagua did something unexpected. He knelt before him. After Buddhism entered China during the late Eastern Han period, monks maintained their independence, advocating that ascetics need not revere rulers. Thus, Fagua had to justify his unusual conduct, explaining that the emperor, as a promoter of Buddhism, deserved reverence. "I kneel not to the emperor, but to the Buddha," he stated, further proclaiming that Talba Gui was the living Buddha, a notion that endeared Buddhism to the emperor significantly. The ruling class's favor toward Buddhism laid the political groundwork for the creation of the Yungang Grottoes. According to the Book of Wei, when Emperor Wensheng ascended the throne, he ordered the creation of stone statues, modeled after each Northern Wei emperor. merging the sacred image of the Buddha with the royal figure, to underscore the divine right of kings.
This equated the emperor with the living Buddha, a strategy that strengthened his rule by asserting his divinity. Starting from this point, the Northern Way actively promoted Buddhism, with the emperor himself often engaging in Buddhist practices, which was crucial.
The Yungang Grottoes were not known by this name during the Northern Way. The name came in the Ming Dynasty, when a military garrison named Yungang Fort was established nearby. Eventually, the grottos became known as Yungang. In the Northern Way era, they were called the Wuzhou Mountain Grotto Temple. Grotto temples in India served as monastic dwellings. As Buddhism spread eastward, these temples evolved into artistic sanctuaries and became cultural phenomena across China. The Three Immortal Caves and Kizil Grottoes in Xinjiang marked the beginning of this tradition. By the Northern Way period, grotto temples extended southeast from Xinjiang to Gansu, eventually reaching the upper and middle reaches of the Yangtze River. Positioned at the westernmost point of the Haihe River basin, and close to the Yellow River, the Yungang Grottoes were key in this chain.
Their significance lies in being the first major imperial grotto complex in northern China. After their establishment, the imperial style of statuary radiated outward, much like ripples from a stone thrown into water. Thus, the spread of Buddhism along with the style of the statues was not a straightforward west to east journey. It was complex, involving a process of dissemination from the center to the periphery. Even distant sites like Dunhuang were influenced by the Yungang Grottoes.
From a spatial perspective, the Yungang Grottoes are divided by two narrow alluvial valleys into three sections: east, central, and west. The east section holds caves 1 to 4. The central section contains caves 5 through 13, and the west section comprises caves 14 through 45. Each section features smaller, honeycomb-like niches surrounding the main grottos, creating a truly magnificent display. Within the Yungang Grottoes, caves numbered 16 to 20 are located in the eastern area of the west section. Along the 1-kilometer stretch of grottos, this part of the cliff face is the flattest and most imposing. Caves 16 to 20 are considered the inception of the Yungang Grottoes. The Buddha in Cave 20 is often seen by scholars as representing Northern Way's founding emperor, Talba Gui, seated at the base of Wuzhou Mountain. Apart from its Caucasoid facial features, what's striking about this statue is its attire. A robe draped over the left shoulder. The flowing, distinct garment style was prevalent in ancient Indian and Central Asian Buddhist art, and reminiscent of the Greek himation. Art historians recognize this as a hallmark of Gandhara art. Gandhara, a Sanskrit term meaning fragrant land, was located in what is now northern Pakistan, along the lower Kabul River. Historically, it referred to the region west of the Pamir Mountains. In the 4th century BC, with Alexander the Great's eastward expansion, Greek artistic influence, including sculpture, reached this area. Around the 1st century AD, Buddhism flourished in Gandhara. Previously, Buddhism did not involve creating Buddha images, but it was here, among the people of Gandhara skilled in Greek sculpture, that early Buddhist statuary began.
Gandhara art blends Indian Buddhist themes and sculpture with a strong Greek influence. For example, Gandharan Buddha statues often resemble the heroic figures of Greek deities.
This represents a cross-cultural fusion. From the 4th to the 6th centuries, the Silk Road was bustling, with monks, traders, and artisans traveling between Gandhara and China's western regions, facilitating the eastward spread of both Buddhism and Gandhara art. As Buddhism spread east, these statues, shaped by ancient Greek and Roman styles, made their way into China. The early Yungang Grottoes on Wuzhou Mountain are among the most systematic displays of Gandhara-style sculpture.
Early Buddhist sculpture reflects the initial expressions of Gandhara art in Buddhism. After its emergence and eastward journey, Yungang became a pinnacle of this style in China.
Some scholars believe the statue in Cave 19 depicts Emperor Talba C, the second ruler of Northern Wei. Standing 16.8 meters tall, it is the second largest Buddha in the Yungang Grottoes. This statue features a broad, square face, with a solemn expression. Seated in a lotus position, the right hand is raised in the Abhya Mudra, while the left hand rests on the knee, holding a scroll.
The scroll in the left hand symbolizes the transmission of Dharma discourse from one master to another, embodying the eternal continuity of Buddhism.
Cave 19's design is particularly unique among Buddhist grottos. Its curved outline resembles the familiar and beloved space of the northern grasslands, the domed tent homes of the Talba Xianbei people, mimicking the vast dome of the sky. This design not only meets structural needs, but also consciously or unconsciously reflects the genuine, enduring lifestyle of the nomadic peoples. The dome and surrounding walls of Cave 19 are almost entirely carved with niches containing small Buddha statues. These circles of niches present a seamless and awe-inspiring display. On the lower south wall east of the archway in Cave 19, there's a young novice monk holding a water bottle with a charmingly innocent expression. This adds a memorable touch of childlike purity in the solemn cave. Above on the south wall, there's a scene from Buddhist scriptures, showing Rahula reuniting with his father. This depicts Shakyamuni Buddha's first homecoming after enlightenment, to meet his 5-year-old son. Shakyamuni stands, raising his right hand in a mudra, while gently touching Rahula's head with his left. Young Rahula, with hands together in reverence, expresses deep love and joy at seeing his father again. The statue beautifully captures the tender bond between father and son. Talba C, the eldest son of Talba Gui, was the first in Northern Wei's history to inherit the throne through primogeniture. A system inspired by Han Chinese traditions. replacing the Xianbei practice of succession through siblings or tribal elections. Upon ascending the throne, Talba Si continued his father's efforts in ethnic and cultural integration, adopting more Han institutional practices, and relying heavily on Han gentry for government roles. Among them, Sui Hao was the most favored. Liangfen, a well-known snack in Datong, lacks a definitive origin. But its earliest mention is credited to Sui Hao, a prominent statesman of Northern Wei, who even authored a lost book titled Classic of Food. Nonetheless, the preparation methods for liangfen appear in ancient texts, such as Qiming Yao Shu and the Book of Sui.
According to Qiming Yao Shu, liangfen could be served hot with meat broth or cold with sesame paste and cheese. Nowadays, it's typically enjoyed with chili soy sauce, vinegar, and oil.
Historical records depict Sui Hao as a well-read, talented Confucian scholar, known for his strong and resilient character, often offering straightforward advice, and exhibiting keen military acumen. He endeavored to use Confucian ideology to influence the Xianbei emperor, and advocated strongly for the establishment of a crown prince following the primogeniture system. Talba Si's eldest son, Talba Tao, was precociously talented, leading military campaigns by the age of 12. To secure the imperial power, Talba Si formally designated Talba Tao as crown prince in 422 AD. The following year, at 31, Talba Si passed away in Pingcheng, and Talba Tao ascended the throne at 15, significantly shaping the future course of Northern Wei. Some scholars speculate that Cave 18 of the Yungang Grottoes was built to honor Emperor Taiwu of the Northern Wei, Talba Tao. From the outside, this cave resembles others, with its arched entrance below and bright window above. Its outer walls are adorned with rows of meditative Buddha figures, densely packed like a beehive, geometrically illustrating the Mahayana Buddhist principle that all beings can attain Buddhahood. Though centuries of weathering have altered its original facade, the remaining faint images of numerous small Buddhas still convey the faith and devotion with which they were carved. The large Buddha statue on the north wall of Cave 18 stands 15.5 meters tall and is unique among Chinese Buddhist grotto carvings. Its distinctiveness lies in the robe it wears. The robe is adorned with countless small Buddha figures. These figures are intricately carved along the robe's folds, even reaching the corner of the garment. Held by the Buddha's left hand, this remarkable design is thus known as the Thousand Buddha Robe. Carving 1,000 Buddhas on a flat stone surface requires immense courage and skill. But to depict such a multitude of figures harmoniously through the dynamic drapery folds is an extraordinary artistic feat. On either side of the main Buddha in Cave 18, there is one additional Buddha, a Bodhisattva, and 5 disciples. The western side's Bodhisattva and disciples have eroded over time, but on the eastern side, the large Buddha stands over 10 meters tall, stepping on a lotus, with a nimbus behind it. Beside this Buddha The Bodhisattva wears an intricately carved crown adorned with a small Buddha figure. Above the Buddha's head are a few disciples with vivid expressions. Cave 18 artistically features an array of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, arranged like stars around the moon, highlighting the central statue, which is thought to symbolize Tuoba Tao. The Book of Wei praised Tuoba Tao for respecting Confucian scholars and excelling in civil and military affairs. Like his father Tuoba Si, he continued to appoint Han Chinese officials such as Cui Hao, despite opposition from Xianbei nobles, further shaping Northern Wei into a feudal empire akin to the Central Plain dynasties. Cui Hao, though well-versed in Confucian and Daoist teachings, strongly opposed Buddhism. He introduced the Daoist Ko Qianji to Tuoba Tao, eventually converting Tuoba Tao to Daoism. Daoism emerged during the late Eastern Han Dynasty in the 2nd century AD, initially struggling to rival the well-established Buddhism. Ko Qianji reformed Daoism by integrating Confucian and Buddhist philosophies, creating comprehensive doctrines along with rites and fasting rituals, significantly advancing Daoism. The Hanging Temple of Wuzhou Mountain, just 65 kilometers from Datong, is said to be built to fulfill Ko Qianji's dying wish for a temple in the air, to commune with celestial beings and cast aside worldly troubles. Decades later, his followers fulfilled this wish by constructing this extraordinary temple on what was once a military post during the march of Tuoba Gui, Northern Wei's founding emperor, into Pingcheng. Its uniqueness lies not only in its remarkable location, but also as a rare temple that integrates Confucianism, Buddhism, and Daoism. At its center sits Shakyamuni, flanked by Confucius on the left and Laozi on the right. However, these statues, symbolizing harmony among the three teachings, were not created during the Northern Wei period, under Tuoba Tao's rule. These ideologies were in intense competition, often leading to tumultuous and violent conflicts. In 440 AD, after embracing Daoism, Tuoba Tao changed the era name to Taiping Jun, a name full of Daoist mystique, and appointed Ko Qianji as the national master. Despite his personal conversion to Daoism and the establishment of Daoism as the state religion of Northern Wei, Buddhism continued to spread rapidly. By then, there were 30,000 Buddhist temples, with 2 million ordained monks. According to the Book of Wei, Northern Wei's population ranged from 11 to 20 million. Excluding women and those who were elderly, young, sick, or disabled, there were still over 2 million people exempt from taxes and military duty, supported by offerings. These were the monks who gathered in monasteries. The extensive construction of Buddhist sites significantly strained Northern Wei's economy and tax system. During Tuoba Tao's reign, he faced serious threats from both the north and south. In the north, the nomadic, Ruan people, as elusive as the northern tribes that had invaded the Central Plains a century before, frequently raided Northern Wei's borders. In the south, the Liu Song dynasty rose to power, ending Eastern Jin rule, founded by Liu Yu, who rose from commoner to unify the south after nearly 20 years of strife. This dynasty's forces advanced north, at times capturing Chang'an. Facing these economic and military challenges, Talba Tao issued an edict, declaring that all privately supported monks and shamans must be surrendered to the authorities. By February 15 of that year, failure to comply would result in execution for the monks and shamans, and severe punishment for their patrons. In cities across northern Wei, soldiers were seen forcing monks back into lay life. However, at that time, few realized this was just the beginning. In 446 AD, an event triggered a sweeping anti-Buddhist campaign. That year, a rebellion broke out in Shanxi, and as Talba Tao was passing through Chang'an during his military campaign, he discovered weapons like bows and swords hidden in a temple. Believing the temple colluded with rebels, Talba Tao then ordered Sui Hao to draft an edict for the destruction of all Buddhist statues and scriptures, the execution by live burial of monks, regardless of age, and a ban on any Buddhist practices. It's known as the Anti-Buddhism Edict.
With too many entering monastic life, the nation's strength was perceived as weakened. If the emperor and others chiefly supported Buddhism, a considerable flow of wealth and manpower went to the monasteries, eventually threatening the state. In this dilemma, some emperors chose the extreme measure of eradicating Buddhism.
This marked the first anti-Buddhist event in Chinese history. Later, 3 more brief anti-Buddhist movements occurred, mainly driven by the economic burden Buddhism placed on the state, prompting emperors to impose strict bans. However, most of these movements only forced monks and nuns back into lay life, and reduced the number and size of monasteries. None were as brutally executed as the northern ways. The edict explicitly called for the eradication of foreign gods, and that all monks be executed regardless of age. From the Buddha's perspective, such violence is merely a worldly episode in the cycle of formation, existence, disintegration, and emptiness. However, the reality was devastating for those affected. Even Sui Hao ally, Ko Qianji, was shocked by the brutality, and advised repeatedly against the slaughter. But Sui Hao ignored him. The only silver lining was when the edict reached Pingcheng, the capital, and handed to Talba Tao's eldest son, Talba Huang. As a Buddhist, he delayed the edict's announcement, giving some monks a chance to escape. The anti-Buddhist campaign spread rapidly across the north, marked by unprecedented cruelty. Monks were buried alive, temples looted, and monasteries built over generations were destroyed. Later archaeologists often discovered burial pits from this period, which contained not human remains but remnants of Buddha statues. In Lingzhang, Hebei province, nearly 3,000 Buddha statues were found in a burial pit less than 3 meters deep.
After the destruction and suppression of Buddhism, many statues were broken, and perhaps hidden away. When the intense persecution eased, some devotees gathered these pieces to ritually bury them an act of merit-making, collecting and burying them to perform good deeds. These actions took place after the Anti-Buddhist Campaign.
Talba Tao, dubbed the God of War in history, spent most of his life on the battlefield, never losing a campaign. His wars against the Rouran are legendary, comparable to Huizubing's famous victories over the Xiongnu during Emperor Wu of Han's reign. Talba Tao led his forces against the Rouran 13 times himself. The campaign of 429 AD stands out, where he split his forces into several groups for a major offensive, leading the Eastern Front himself. His light cavalry executed deep, swift raids, capturing many enemy combatants. This weakened the Rouran considerably, forcing their chieftain to flee, and bringing a temporary peace to the northern frontier. After years of warfare, Talba Tao finally ventured deep into the Heshi corridor in 439 AD and defeated the northern Liang, the last of the 16 kingdoms. With this victory, the north, chaotic for 135 years, was finally unified. The Heshi corridor is a section of the Silk Road, through which Buddhism entered China. The rulers of northern Liang and their predecessors held Buddhism in high reverence. The Yungang Grottoes, carved during the later Qin, may predate the Yungang Grottoes by about 50 years. The Danhuang Grottoes, estimated to have begun in 366 AD, were built roughly 100 years before the Yungang Grottoes. Back then, the Heshi corridor was the center of Buddhism in China. Beyond building grottos and temples, rulers of the area organized the translation of Buddhist texts by monks. Wu Wei, famous for the Han era masterpiece, Bronze Galloping Horse, was once northern Liang's capital. After northern Wei conquered northern Liang, they relocated 3,000 monks and 30,000 households of officials, artisans, and commoners to their capital in Pingcheng. Liangzhou was a hub of Buddhist scholarship, noted for hosting the Indian monk Dharmaraka, who translated Buddhist scriptures there. Grottos were also being constructed around Liangzhou. As the northern Liang fell, the locus of Buddhism in the north shifted eastward to Pingcheng. On the way to Pingcheng, Wuzhou Mountain is an inevitable stop. Among the many monks relocated, there was a monk named Taonyao. It's unknown if he ever paused to take in the tranquil scenery. At that time, he could not have foreseen the impending anti-Buddhist persecution, nor could he have imagined that he would later fulfill a grand vision here. It was he who, after the death of Talba Tao, led monks and craftsmen from various ethnic groups to carve the earliest grottos at Yungan beneath Wuzhou Mountain.